Guys, we have a Dallas-Fort Worth legend on the podcast today. He's done just about anything and everything. He's a full-on real estate entrepreneur, been in the business for 20 years, wholesaled a ton of houses, flipped a ton of houses, owns a ton of houses. We're going to talk about the houses he owns and what he's doing right now at the top of the market. He's been in the insurance space. He's been lending. He's done pretty much anything in real estate agent. Let's just get him on the show right now, guys. Tim Herriage is on the call. Tim, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia on vacation with my youngest son. He wanted to come out here and see his grandfather and grandmother. So they're at the battle of the Yorktown battle site right now. And I got to use doing this as an excuse to not go again.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes. I mean, Tim, you've been around forever. Even when I got in the business, I was coming and listening to you speak at seminars. And, one of the things that, I remember you saying one time, maybe this was like 3 or 4 years ago, you were doing a seminar and you brought up that you wish you would have kept more houses. And I think this is what a lot of investors go back and look at 5 years, 10 years in hindsight, looking back. It's enticing, right? You have the mindset, you're going to fix this house up, refinance out, and then you get to the end of it, it's done. You're like, let me just put it on the market. Let me see what I get. And then you get a $50,000 offer above what you have for. You're like, man, that $50K check looks good. But if you had financed out, what would it have done? So let's kind of talk about this, kind of where you're at right now. I know you just refinanced a bunch of your properties. And let's talk about the benefits of doing so, and also just keeping more of these properties and advising some of these young investors to just be patient, have a little more delayed gratification. They're going to do a lot better down the road.
To me, flipping houses, wholesaling houses is kind of like crack, right? I mean, because you get this big check and everyone remembers the big checks. And, you've kind of those of us that end up being good at the business forget the ones that we wrote big checks to get rid of, right? What happens is I see it time and time in the last 20 years, investors, they get the big check and then they want another big check. So they spend more in advertising, they grow their team, they expand their markets, they go into other strategies, and they end up just adding so many layers of expenses that then they have to do more deals to pay the bills. And then they're not factoring taxes and time. And, kind of my whole platform now is we all get into this business to have more freedom and more time. And doggone it, so many of us actually then create more crap to do so that we get rid of all the free time that we say we want.
Right. I feel you. It's, guys, if you don't make money while you sleep, you're going to die working, right? So they don't understand residual income streams. And, all the time I talk to these young investors, wholesaling houses, I go, how many are you keeping? Well, I'm not keeping any. I was like, you understand passive income, right? They're like, yeah, I understand it. I said, well, you don't have any, so you clearly don't understand it because you're not working for it, because you're working for earned income. And it's just, so myself, we were talking about this before the podcast started. I mean, like you said, you'd have an extra $5 million probably conservatively just from if you had kept a lot of those houses that you could.
One more a year.
So what are you doing right now? You just refinanced some of these and you ripped out a bunch of cash. Kind of give us the idea. So you told me you had about 5 houses. You pulled out almost $250,000 or over $250,000. And how's that going to benefit you? What are the benefits to doing that?
So first off, investors really have to understand the way the lenders run their numbers, right? So this $250,000 kind of proceeds, we'll call it, is from 5 houses. One we've owned over 10 years. One we've owned for, I think, 3 years. 2 we've owned for less than 4 months. And then I can't remember which other ones. Oh, the other one we've owned for like 7 or 8 years. And so by blending the seasoning, right, how long you've owned the house, you actually then are able to get kind of a higher loan to value on the newer houses, and you're able to get your cash back out. So the idea for me is, and then also, very, very important to say, that $280,000 estimated dollars I'll get in August is tax-free, right? You don't pay taxes on it. And some would say, well, that's just like a loan. You're borrowing it. Yes, but someone else is paying it back, right? So, if I told you I'll give you $1 million today, Connor, and someone else is going to pay it back for you, it sounds good, right? I mean, it's so for me, I take that money tax-free. We clear any liabilities that we have against those assets, right? So if we had just used a Home Depot credit card to remodel one of the new acquisitions, that's the first thing you clear up. So I estimate we'll have about 230,000-ish net kind of new deployable capital. All of those houses are leveraged below 75 LTV, and they're all leveraged based off of a debt service coverage ratio to where they cash flow, right? It's not an irresponsible. I'm not leveraging to the hilt. I see some people in DFW taking out 85% mortgages. I don't know about that. So these are they're still responsible mortgages, right? I mean, so I figure I'll have, let's just call it $200,000 by the time we put some reserves aside. Right now we're buying houses where it's about $25,000 to $30,000 out of pocket by the time we refi. So I figure I'll refinance those 5 houses and I'll go buy 6 more houses. Basically, could get to 7, just depends kind of how well we perform. So you definitely double up. You take 5 and turn it into 10. You get that cash tax free, which is very important when you're looking at living a passive income lifestyle, right? Because if you've got to pay a bunch of taxes, you need much more income. By buying the new houses, we're able to get more depreciation to kind of offset the depreciation from the older assets. But then also on the refinance, we pay extra points because this is like, I know I'm not trying to give a finance class, but when you pay points on a refinance, that's a year 1 expense. By paying points on these cash flow mortgages, you actually then lower your interest rate, which then increases your ability to cash flow, which then makes it where you can borrow more money. So you're borrowing this money you don't ever pay taxes on to pay these points that give you a write-off in year 1 that lower your rate to where over the life of the loan, I pay about 5 total points. So it's kind of a 3-point buy down on my mortgages. And you figure it's a 1/4 point per year, kind of 1 point is a 1/4 point per year in rate, right? So, and it takes about 2 years to make up 1 point that you pay on the mortgage. So kind of when you look at it, we figure when you run the math, by paying those 3 extra points, as long as I keep that mortgage 5 years, I more than break even. If I keep it 7 or 8 years, I mean, those extra 3 points saved me tens of thousands of dollars in interest rate. So it's not that complex of a strategy. I learned it from a billionaire that started B2R Finance for Blackstone. He said, team, never sell houses. And that's the problem. As an investor, we think, okay, we have these rent houses. If we ever need money, we can sell them. Well, that's just the dumbest thing because you pay taxes when you sell. So why not just have a good refinance strategy, use responsible leverage, pull that cash in tax-free, lower your lifestyle. I mean, and really quick, you can be to a passive life, right?
Those are some golden nuggets right there, guys. I go back and watch that again. That's some really good info right there. So what about this? A lot of people are saying, we're getting to the top of the market. You're seeing building permits reduced. You're seeing days on market up, number of actions up. Is it still, a good strategy in your mind? Obviously you did it, but a lot of people are going to say, well, I want to, keep this equity in case the market turns. But you think a lot of people are going to look back in hindsight and think that, how close do you think we are to the top, first of all? And
well, we had a bit of a technical recession last year. If you look at some of the crazy people on CNN and what they say, or MSNBC, I think it's a market by market thing. I think, talking to that same billionaire that started that Blackstone company, he says, look at replacement cost, right? I mean, so I think we could probably have some hiccups around the presidential election next year. But I don't see crazy mortgages right now. You got to think like what could drive real estate down, right? High interest rates. Well, the Fed just lowered interest rates. High unemployment. I mean, GDP keeps going up. Unemployment keeps going down. Lack of credit availability could dry up the resale, but we're in an interesting market now, Connor, that people aren't selling because they can't get qualified to buy. So it's keeping inventory low, which then keeps prices, the supply low, and the demand keeps going up. And so I feel like the housing market is just super balanced right now. I mean, we may get to a flat period. I mean, I don't think we ever see interest rates on personal mortgages above 6% again in our life. It would just be political suicide for anyone that let that happen. And we know that these politicians would rather kill America than kill their career. So I don't know, man. I mean, I had predicted that by 2020 it would get a little rocky. I think we may have a little bit of a flat year or something like that, but I don't know, man. I don't know if every market will ever see a top again unless prices get near replacement cost. If prices get near replacement cost, then you could have a rampant increase in building. Man, there's just so many generations. You know, we could get into socioeconomics and talk about, parents that are moving in with kids and kids that are moving in with their parents. And so, man, I don't think that there's anything to worry about, number one. And number two, I always tell myself this, and this is kind of what I've had to refocus on. What are the three basic necessities in life are food, water, and shelter, right? You can't afford to be a farmer anymore because that's something that's really owned by the big corporations. I don't know how to sell water. I don't think I would want to sell water. But by having my money and my investments in housing, I feel like even if there was a recession, I don't remember rental rates dropping more than like maybe 5% in the Great Recession. And if it was a Great Depression round two, if you look at it, the government started paying people's rent. I mean, that's where Section 8 came from. So I've kind of put myself in a recession, depression-proof business as long as you don't overborrow, right? And all my loans are fixed rate. They're all 30-year. They have no call features, no balloons, no adjustable rates, right? And too many investors are getting interest-only loans right now or 3-year adjustable rate mortgages. And I think that's stupid. Maybe not stupid. That's kind of harsh, right? That's not a prudent practice if you intend to weather less than admirable economics cycles. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, that's important for these individuals to understand. They're getting in the business. What do you think the replacement cost is right now to build a 3-2 brick rancher house in DFW that's 1,800 square foot? What do you think?
Well, wow, it's like that was a pretty good setup there, man. So we just built 5 houses in Garland last year, which is, if the listeners don't know, it's an eastern suburb of Dallas. They were 1,600 living square feet. I'm doing the math right now. I don't even remember what we built them for. We built them for about $90 a foot. And that was the construction cost. And that's not counting land. And that's no builder profit because we partnered with a builder and split the profit. I see right now replacement cost on under roof construction is about $95 under roof. It's about $115 a foot living, right? So, I mean, yeah, there's some neighborhoods where you're paying over $130 a foot, but you got to look at what you're replacing. Those are neighborhoods that have marble and, upgraded finishes and all that, which actually then, what I'm talking about is a builder grade kind of rental entry-level house. So, I think on the low end right now, you're looking $115 a foot replacement cost. On the high-end houses, $150, $160.
Right. What do you think is, what as far as your time distribution? I know you're doing a lot right now. I know you're in the insurance space. What are you doing with your insurance business? Is this something you're doing national or just locally here? Or is this something everybody that's listening to this podcast can work with you on?
Yeah, so REI Choice Insurance is a national company. And we have about, I want to say it's 1,500 houses insured across the nation. It's a little over $100 million worth of insured value. We'll do a custom master policy if people own more than 15 or 20 houses, but most investors just go on the standard program. The standard program, it's got your loss of rents coverage. It's it's not cash value. It's replacement cost coverage, really low deductibles, and really low rates. We write good insurance. We have, I feel like it's the best product in the nation. A lot of people use that company out of Kansas City, and we routinely beat them by 15 to 40%. And it's all online, right? So anyone listening can just go to reichoice.com. They can click on register, and about 5 minutes later, they can have a quote on their property. If they like the quote, they can just hit bind, put their credit card in, and then print the actual certificate of coverage. It takes me about 3 minutes now that I actually have done it a couple times. Probably takes less than 10 minutes the first time you do it. So it's growing like crazy, like 50% quarter over quarter. We're about, I think we've been doing it for about 20 months. It's a business I really like. But you were talking about my time distribution. I don't do much there, right? I have a great partner, Andy Coslow, that is a 20-year insurance agent. And he came to me with part of the idea. He knew I wanted to start an insurance agency and was introduced by a mutual friend. And he said, and he had built and sold one of his companies to a bank, a property and casualty company. And he came to me and just said, hey, I love niches. I think this is a great niche. Let's put something together. So through my connections I had nationwide, I reached out to several carriers. We did this deal through Arcana, who actually, they do all the home insurance for all the HomeVestors franchisees nationwide. So I had a lot of experience with them there. And I went to them and I said, I want to make a program like that available to the general public, but we're going to make some changes. And we made some changes and it worked out great. So that's fun, right? The insurance company is great. It's good money. It's residual. It's relatively passive for me. But yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on that. I'll be honest, man, I've become kind of lazy. I've sold a couple companies in the last 18, 24 months. My oldest son leaves for college next week. I've been spending a lot of time traveling with the family and just trying to soak that all in, right? Because it's a matter of reflection. I'm only 41, but I've done a lot at the age of 41. And, you don't get those days back, right? So just trying to spend a lot of time with him, try to do a little different with the youngest. He's 9. So I brought him out here. He's with grandpa today. I'll go join them up this afternoon. Just trying to find some balance, really focused on my rental portfolio, man. That is my way I can really retire and lead a great life and not have the stress of what color to paint something or which flooring to put in.
I think you're doing right. I mean, the reason why you work so hard and we're on the grind for 20 years is so you can buy back that time to do what you want with your life and spend time with the loved ones. So I think you're doing fine. No need to push it so hard. I mean, you've been going for 20 years straight. Guys, and for the insurance, here's what I tell people when it comes to like title companies and insurance companies. A lot of people get used to sticking on one and they stay with that one for a long time. You don't even know how the other companies are. You don't know if it's better or not. You can run a policy through Tim and just see what it's like, just so you have an idea of what's on the other side of the fence. But go check that out, guys. We'll put the links below. Let's have a little bit of fun here, Tim. Let's, you mentioned earlier the pain of writing a big check, but also you get big checks. Let's talk about your best deal that you've ever done, and then we'll talk about your worst deal that you've ever done, and just kind of look at these deals and see what you learned from them and kind of get some talking points for these young investors out there. So what's the biggest deal and the best deal that you've ever done in 20 years in the business?
I don't know. We talked about this earlier and I tried to think about it. I even went through searching my emails. I don't know. I think the most fun. Can I talk about the most fun?
Yeah, let's do it.
I bought a house in Richardson, Texas that was in a neighborhood called The Reservation. And it's a super hot neighborhood and there's just ton of activity. They're scraping houses and building McMansions and all that. And I bought this house for like $250 or so. And I had no idea what I was buying. I was running the comps on the like kind houses. And the first day we started, like somebody knocks on the door or catches me out front. They're like, hey, I want to buy that house. I said, it's not for sale, man. I'm about to remodel it. You call me in a couple months. He's like, no, I want to buy it right now. I was like, I'm going to remodel it. I'm not going to wholesale it. He goes, well, I don't care what you do to it. I'm just going to knock it down. I want to buy it right now. I said, how much you give me? And he's like, he paid me like $80,000 more than I'd paid for it the week before. And that was just fun for me, right? Because like you're there and you're in this mode of like, we're going to figure this out and we're going to, you've got contractors and 30 minutes later, you're texting everybody, hey, never mind, you're calling your wife, like, I just made 80 grand this morning, So I think that, those type of things, that stuff like that's happened to me a lot. I bought a ranch in Brownwood, Texas, and I'd been monitoring it online, and all of a sudden there's a major price drop, and I paid cash for it, and I hunted out there for like a year and a half, and then I was packing up after deer season, and some guy, the neighbor, comes by, he's like, hey, I want to buy your place. I said, it's not for sale. These are the conversations, right? And he's like, well, I know what you paid for it. I was like, well, good for you. He goes, I'll pay you double. I said, it's yours. I drove home. I just loaded up my tractor and everything, and I left. I think those are the most fun, right? I don't keep score on the big ones. And I don't even keep score on the bad ones. I just try to learn, So like the dumbest thing I ever did was a property at 309 Forest Grove in Richardson, these Richardson houses. The dumbest thing I ever did is I was training, this was back in 06, 07. I was training, I don't know if you know Jason Riney. I just hired him as a buyer, and I was training him, and I was training another guy named Tom McWilliams. And Tom was with me, and we go into this house, and I'm big dogging it, and I'm trying to act like I'm the cool dude. And I buy this house, and I didn't verify the square footage when there was a converted garage, and I know better. And this is in like a $200 a square foot neighborhood. It's in Canyon Creek, right? So like at the beginning, I'm off 400 square feet at 200 a foot. Like if you do the math, that's $80,000 freaking dollars, right? Well, I didn't acknowledge, and I had hard money, and I over rehabbed the house. Then I overpriced it based off of what I had into it, And about 18 months later, I finally got rid of that damn thing. And we lost six figures, no problem. I can't remember what we lost. I used to know the number by heart, but now it's just like, the lesson there is once you realize you made a bad buy, get yourself out of it. Don't compound the problem time and time and time and time again, paying 18% interest. Another bad deal in Richardson was a house that I did through my fund. We lost over $200,000 on that one. It was, yeah.
I saw that. I think you had a video of that one.
I'm sure I did, right? So it's this big house on a creek in Richardson, and we had these plans to add square footage, and the city comes in, and it took a year and a half, We added more square footage than we originally planned because we started getting cute, right? And like, oh, well, and then we had a couple framers walk off. It was everything from bad management to bad planning to bad luck. And so, that one, when it closed, I think we lost like $205,000 on that one. But it's just, it's a bonehead move. And then the most unlucky thing that ever happened to me in this business was, and this is probably the cautionary tale for the coming recession that everybody wants to talk about. It was August of 2007, and I had bought a house on the corner of Cedar Brush and Marsh, right by the Hockaday School in North Dallas, which is, an elite private girls' school. And I bought it for $300 off of MLS, and I had a solid cash investor that wanted to pay me $320 for it, and on an assignment. And then I had a guy come up that wanted to get a loan through his bank, and he was going to pay me $380. So obviously I took the $380, right? Well, mid-August, the securities market crashed. The first subprime loan bundle didn't trade on the trade desk, and that just killed it all. Well, and this guy's name was Al. Al calls me and says, hey, I can't buy that house. My bank said, no, they're not doing any more real estate loans. They said that market's dead. I'm like, man, look, you got $5,000 up. You're going to lose it. He's like, that's fine, dude. I can't get the loans. Fine, you know what? So I call the 320 guy back, and I'm like, hey, man, you want to buy this house? He's like, yeah, man, that market's dead. I'm not buying that house. You're crazy. Come on, I get it. You're trying to negotiate. I'll give it to you for $310. He's like, Tim, I'm not, I was like, tell you what, I don't have time for it right now. I already got my $5,000. I'll give you for $295. He's like, no, man, I'm telling you, like, It's dead. And this is like a week later, dude. He was offering 320. Now he won't even pay 295. So, I was bullheaded and ended up buying the house and fixing the house. I think I spent like 20 grand on it, finally sold it for like 325 or so. And then, so by the time you add everything up, I end up losing 20 grand. So I just remember that was like $100,000 differential in 2 months of when I was going to buy, had it where I was going to make 80, ended up losing 20. Right. And so, hindsight though, right? You look back, had I adjusted quicker when that happened to me, I probably it'd probably be $500,000 to $1 million I wouldn't have lost. But I was bullheaded, right? I ignored the warning signs, kept charging forward. So, I don't keep score, but I try to learn.
Well, it helps, to hear someone as seasoned as you talk about your losses, because most people, you only hear about their wins, right? And as you're hearing it, so it sounds like your biggest losses all came from traditional fix and flips.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things you brought up there, guy, and twice this last year, I had friends lose over 100 grand on houses because of square foot issues. So I think one of the best skills you can learn as a young professional in business is go and figure out how to measure your own houses. So at least you have an idea, or pay for it to get done. Here's a good story on the flip side. I bought a house in Frisco, and went through, got it all done. The lady, not to get too deep into it, was actually, maybe I shouldn't bring it up. She was having an affair with a professional sports athlete and had an illegitimate child. So I probably won't bring that up on this podcast, but it's an interesting deal. And they were getting foreclosed on. It was one of his baby mamas, I guess. And she came back to get all her stuff and out of the house and was moving her stuff out. And when she was walking out the front, she goes, I don't know if it matters or not, but that bonus room upstairs, that big TV room, when the builder built the house, he left that off the tax roll for some reason, or it didn't get recorded on tax roll. It was like 400 plus square feet in $130, $140 a square foot area. If she hadn't said that, I was going to put the house up off what I thought it was at. And, that's a $40,000+ increase just because of square footage differences. So it can go both ways. Most of the time it goes the other way. You mentioned something though about garage conversions. This is something that we get asked all the time. How do you view the value of garage conversion? Because you see it all the time, these new wholesalers, they have a converted garage and they say the house is 1,800 square feet and they adjust the value, what they think is off the total 1,800 square foot. Say it was a 1,400 square foot house, 400 square foot garage. They're saying $100 a square foot by 1,800, but they're losing the value of the garage.
I always try to start with what I call the eyeball test, right? So, I mean, if the garage is in front of the house, I go stand in the middle of the street and I look around and, are more than half of the garages converted, just like the one I'm looking at? If so, then I figure, all right, I don't need to unconvert it. And then I look at the comps, right? So if I have comps of other conversions, right, I make sure I skew towards those. For me, if I don't have comps and the rest of the neighborhood is not converted and I intend to flip it, well, then I'm going to go ahead and just budget to unconvert the garage and make it like the rest of the neighborhood or the rest of the comps. Because the market is telling me at that point in time that neighborhood, that area doesn't want what I have. If it's a rental, I look at it a little bit different, because sometimes having a 4-bedroom instead of a 3 can, bump you $200 to $300 a month in rent. So I would say my first thing is the neighborhood. I stand out front or stand in the back and walk up and down the alley and just look to see if the neighborhood likes that or not. And then the second is comps, right? So if I've got a converted garage and I can't find any converted garage, I know I probably need to unconvert it. Or vice versa. If I've got an unconverted garage and there's a lot of converted garages, I know that I've got a potential value add play to convert the garage, maybe add a carport. Because like you said, if I'm in a $150 a square foot neighborhood and I can do that for $90 a foot, right, the value add is 50% more than I'm going to spend on it. So I might as well go ahead and do it.
Now, what's your thought on this? A lot of people getting into business are attracted to those 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, old frame houses because they see the cash flow numbers on them up front. I know you've probably owned a lot of those over the years, but do you own those now, or kind of give me your take on this? Because that's what a lot of people bring to me all the time. They're like, well, should I buy this house? Should I not? And my personal opinion is, I'll give it to you after you share yours, but let's you talk and give your opinion on that real quick.
So when you look at the last 10 years of activity in my rental portfolio, there are two things that are not there anymore. Three things. Anything, well, I can't say that. So there's only two. There's nothing left that's less than 3 bedrooms, and there's nothing left that is less than 2 baths. When I look at the Great Recession, the rental properties I had trouble with were the 4-bedroom, 1 bath, the 2-bedroom, 1 bath, the 3-bedroom bath and a half, the 4-bedroom bath and a half in Richardson. The less traditional homes that attract families that are probably in a transitional period of their life had high vacancies or just attracted more of an unstable family or type arrangement. So when I really look back at it, that's one of the reasons now, like our last couple of acquisitions for our rental portfolio are $190,000 to $250,000 houses that rent for $1,700 to $2,000 that are 3 and 4 bedroom, 2 and 3 bath type houses. Because what I find is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, a family grows out of it really quick, right? One more kid and boom, right? You're out of it. A 4-bedroom bath and a half tends to attract a family that has a lot of kids, and then you have kind of maintenance issues, if you will. So, because if you got a 4-bedroom bath and a half, you probably need a lot of room for kids, and you probably got more people than the house can actually hold, you know? So anytime you over occupy or over cram anything, right? I mean, if I took this bottle of water and overfilled it with water, then, you know, it's eventually going to lose its form and bust, right? And I think that's the same thing that happens with the house. So, you know, I've almost gotten rid of all my frame houses. To be honest, I have one left, and it's kind of it's a sentimental thing. It was the first house my wife ever bought 20-something years ago on a VA assumable mortgage. And so we keep that house it's kind of sentimental. It doesn't fit the portfolio at all. But we did just pull like $60,000 out of it. So it continues to pay the bills.
Well, it sounds like we're in the same spot, because I'm getting rid of everything that over the past few years I bought. They're frame houses. And I just got rid of an old duplex. And yeah, it's just, you know, obviously, you know, you're going to have higher vacancy rates and you're going to have higher turnover. I've had a lot, you know, cash flow numbers are huge on them, but when you can't keep anybody in there turning the cash flow over, it's no point to stay. So let's see here. Are you adjusting your strategies for marketing at all now that the market's kind of at the top? Are you looking for low equity deals, subject to type of deals? You just brought up assumptions. So are you looking to focus on short sales or anything? Are you focused on adjusting it at all? Or are you staying on the same track?
If anything, I've reduced and gotten kind of more laser focused. I mean, right, if you send a postcard to someone these days, they're going to get 50 of them. I've been focused on doing some search engine optimization, and I've been focused on doing some search engine marketing, really trying to appeal to the people that want a personal touch and maybe not the big home buyers. A lot of my acquisitions lately have come from my online efforts. I still send like 5,000 postcards a week. It still gets me some good houses. You know, it's definitely paying for itself. I think my entire annual budget was covered by April just off of the fix and flip and wholesaling activity. But again, when you advertise that much, you put yourself in a position where you have to wholesale, and you put yourself in a position where you have to fix and flip. And it's a repetitive cycle. And I've kind of got a plan in place for the next 18 months to get out of that. And then just maybe buy from other wholesalers when I'm ready to, or even just keep my portfolio kind of where it's at and look for some referrals. You know, I think, you know, it's a competitive market out there, and the biggest thing I'm doing is sticking to my guns. I talked to a wholesaler in Dallas last weekend. He saw that I beat him on a house, and I beat him on terms, not on price, right? Because my terms were, I'm putting a massive amount of earnest money down, and I'll close in a very, very, very short period of time, and there's no option, nothing. Like, I mean, it's, you don't want to bid against a contract like that, because if you're not 120% sure you're going to own the house, you don't want to bid against it, right? And so I was talking to him, and he was telling me about how many deals he had done in May, and I was like, man, that sounds great. I said, what's your margins like? And he's like, oh, $2,000 to $4,000 a house. And I'm just looking at him like, you got to be kidding me, because to me, he had done 6 or 7 deals. I can't remember the number in May. Well, I'd done 2. Well, I was making $40,000 a house, right? So if I do 2 at 80 and he does 7 at 3 or 4 or 5 even, I mean, your risk exposure goes way up when you go outside your numbers. So right now, I say all that to say I haven't really changed my marketing strategy much, but I'm sticking to my numbers. If I can't buy the house on my numbers, I'm happy to let someone else get it. And I've tried to make my offers stronger by putting up a lot more earnest money and making really solid cash offers that I'll close on in 2-3 business days.
Right. That's good advice. That's what we do too. That's how you're going to win a lot of deals of these wholesalers, because they put that money up there. They know you're serious. Let's talk about the list. What's your, over the past, couple of decades you've been doing this, you've done a ton of marketing. What's your favorite list? Give a couple, 2 or 3 that you think are good ones to go after.
I really don't use any list. I download the county database every year, and I sort by how long they've owned it and what the house is assessed at, and kind of the map. I'll date myself here. The MAPSCO grid. So MAPSCO, you ever seen a MAPSCO, or are you too young for that?
I think I remember those.
Yeah. Well, MAPSCO is like a book of like hundreds of pages, and each page has like this grid system. Well, I know where I want to buy, and it's actually still a field in the county database. So I'll kind of sort by that, and that helps me locate the people I think I should market to. So, and then it just comes down to a function of budget, right? So I'm very budget conscious now, right? So conscious now. So I know I'm going to spend X dollars a year, right? And I think the number right now is $125,000 in marketing this year. And so, and I'm going to divide that up weekly. And so I'm spending about $2,000 a week. I think, yeah, it's like $2,000 a week. It's like 17, yeah, $2,000 a week. $1,000 a month on pay-per-click, and then $1,700 a week on direct mail. So whatever the heck that averages to. And I know by doing that, right, I'm going to spend about $8,000 a month, right? And there's months that I buy 0, and there's months that I buy 4. I know I'll average out to 2 a month, right? And I'll keep my cost per acquisition at 4,000, and as long as I keep my profit per acquisition above 20,000, I'm making a 500% return on that advertising money, and that's good enough for me.
Right. That's why it's getting tough out there for wholesalers. I mean, most people are spending 4 to 6, and that's after you've been honing in your craft for years. A lot of them are spending $6, $7, $8,000 to do a $6, $7, $8,000 wholesale deal. It's like, man, y'all need to figure out how to raise money or figure out how to squeeze some more out of these. But you mentioned you're doing more with the internet and more social media or SEO marketing, but you're also ramping up your social media presence, which I like, and you're getting out there, and you've launched the Business and BBQ Podcast, and you got your YouTube channel cranking. So let's talk about that a little bit and shoot some traffic over there for you. So what inspired that, and I like the idea that you're not just doing the same old repetitive podcast, that you got a little twist to it. So let's kind of dig into the Business and BBQ Podcast. What's going on there?
So in 2018, my oldest son blew his knee out while I was hosting what at that time was the largest real estate investor club in the market. It was April 8th. And, I wasn't there. I was busy with my investor club, and, it was kind of a wake up moment for me. In the following months, I just started taking more time for what was important to me. And one of those things is barbecue. I've always loved barbecue. It's a soulful experience. I'm from Texas. And it's just one of those things you can't rush, right? You can't rush cooking it, and you can't rush eating it, right? Because if you go to somewhere good, now, yeah, if you go to Dickey's or Spring Creek or one of those junky places, Sure, you can be in a rush because it doesn't take long. But there were all these places on my, oh, I can't wait to go there. I can't wait to go there. And I just kind of started looking at it like, okay, Tim, I mean, you're a guy that makes $1 million a year and you can't take time to go do something you want to do. I mean, that's the problem. So I started taking time for it in the fall of 18. And I started getting like a lot of engagement on social media. And it became something that was fun, that I loved, that I was passionate about. And so, you know, to me, barbecue is a metaphor in my podcast for taking the time for things in your life that matter. And then business, the reason I didn't want to go with the real estate focus is, like, big secret, I hate flipping houses. I do. I mean, I hate it. I hate contractors. I hate Home Depot. I hate paint selections. I hate driving in the heat to go look at some fat lady's house while she blows smoke on you. I hate it. But I love owning businesses. I love the lifestyle that being a businessman has created for me. And so that's why I call it business and barbecue, right? Because I want to talk about the things that are important to me. I want to talk about business concepts that should help anyone. And I want to talk about barbecue, dang it. So I'm going to. And it's been fun. You know, we're 3 months into it. It seemed to be growing a little bit, trying to stick to it weekly. It's been fun, and it's a platform. It's a social involvement. As you know, being a real estate investor, it gets lonely sometimes, right? You sit in your room or you sit in your car all the time by yourself. And I've always started these conferences and seminars and stuff. And I don't want to do that anymore, Connor. I want to go to my son's birthday football part. My oldest son's going to play college football. I want to go to his games, right? And I want to coach my youngest son. And I want to do things on my time, on my schedule, in my location. And that's, to me, the beautiful thing about a podcast is I can share information and be involved in a social aspect really from anywhere in the world. So that's why I'm doing it.
Well, like you said, you know, like, well, not just real estate investors, it's just entrepreneurship in general. It's a sacrifice, and it is a lonely road. A lot of people don't realize to get to where you're going, because you have to have that high level of focus and put that many hours in. And then, you know, I think the reason why you like it is because there's not many of us out there that are full time, and we're all kind of cut from the same cloth. And then you get to, you know, start to build relationships with people just like you. I don't know, have you been thinking about why don't you create a little studio out on the patio and do it live while y'all cooking the barbecue?
So there is a studio being built right now. So in an effort to simplify my life, we took our current personal residence and we're turning it into a corporate rental. And we bought my in-laws' house on 3 acres and built them another house behind it because they're kind of getting elderly. And we're going to move into the big house. We're building a pool, and then I'm building a 20 by 20 cabana with an outdoor kitchen, and kind of we're going to do some filming. And when people ask me to lunch, I'm just going to cook for them instead, because I love to cook, right? I mean, and I think it's going to be a fun environment. It simplifies my life. I'll always be 3 minutes away from my kids' school and football practice. And I am really looking forward to it. We'll have a grand opening, and I'll make sure that you're invited.
Well, I'm down for that. I love barbecue. So, you know, we're coming to the hour here. Is there anything that's going on in the business right now that you think is important to go over? You know, any other topics you've been covering on podcasts a lot lately, the buzz out there in the marketplace that you think is relevant to bring up that people need to know about?
I think that the worst period of my life, like ever, was 08 and 09, my professional life. And a lot of it happened because I had bad loans and I was overextended, because the market got so hot in 06 and 07 that you had to spend so much money in order to compete that you really were not being responsible. And so what I see people all over social media, most of it's probably a lie. I mean, because that's just
more than most of it.
Yeah. But I see them getting offices and hiring staff and expanding, and they're working 7 days a week, right? And here's what I know. I mean, I know billionaires, people that like can write a $1 billion cash check and it would clear. And they don't work that hard, right? And I know people that are worth 15, 20, 30 million bucks, and they don't work that hard, right? So I think I would tell people that, number one, take time for your family or your passion or the things you care about. Number two, don't overextend yourself for the sake of growing for the sake of growth. Kind of be diligent, when I look back, Connor, if I had you got to understand how much is enough, right? So if you're listening to this podcast and the most you've ever made is $100,000 in a year, and then you finally get to where you're going to make more than that, but then you go hire someone because you think you found something that'll make you buy you another 5 houses. Like, just be realistic. I had to edit myself there. Just be realistic that, you're going to put yourself in a position where you have to buy houses. And the moment you do that, you lose your discipline, right? The moment you have to buy a house in order to pay your marketing or keep your salesperson fed or whatever, you lose your discipline as an investor. And if I had listened to a mentor of mine named Mark Higgins in 2005, when he told me that, it was when I was getting ready. We were making a killing. All right, in 05, 06, we were making $1 million plus a year net profit. And I was having lunch with Mark Higgins and Fernando Batista at Primo's in Uptown in 05. And we were talking about this. I bought 2 acres and was building this $1 million house. And, I was, what the heck? That was 13 years ago. So I was like 27, 28 years old. And he was like, stop. I was like, nah, man, I'm not listening to you. And, those decisions of hiring more people, extending my personal expenses, growing too fast, business and personal lifestyle, keeping up with the Joneses, right? That's the other thing. Like, I know I'm bouncing all over the place, but like these people on Facebook that you watch in these groups from all across the nation are full of liars. And people post checks and they don't, a check means nothing, right? On that house that I lost $205,000 on, I got $300,000 at closing, right? So I could say, "Ooh, look at my check," right? It's like, who gives a crap?
The 10 grand profit in it.
Yeah, but also there's a lot of wholesalers specifically that, they close less than half of the deals they put under contract, like straight up. And so when someone's saying, I did 100 deals this year, it's like, who gives a crap? Because here's the question. If you do 100 deals, half of them close, and you make $3 grand a deal net profit, right? What is that? That's $150,000. Well, now you're paying taxes on that. So congratulations, you made $90,000, right? Or why not just be someone that buys a house like every 3 months and you do 4 of them and you make $40,000 each because you're diligent and focused and disciplined. You made $160,000 after taxes, right? You made $100,000, but you slept in bed until 10 o'clock every day and, had morning makeout sessions with your wife or something, right? That's my thing. Is like, don't overextend, be diligent, grow slow, especially at this phase of the market where everything's been like that for 8-9 years, because you just never know what's going to happen. I don't see anything coming. I'm not trying to be doomsday-ish, but what I'm saying is 20 years later, if I had just grown slower and been more focused on saving cash, buying rent house, saving cash, buying rent house, I'd probably be worth another $5 million, and I'd probably have 10 years left on my life that I've given away due to stress and, not taking care of myself. And that's the last thing I'm going to say. One of my favorite books ever was Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And it talks about the ladder of success, and, the most successful people network and find someone that's already climbed halfway up the ladder where they can get on halfway up the ladder and keep climbing. And my advice is find a mentor, find someone you can pay, or find someone who'll do it for free, or listen to a podcast like this. But when you hear someone talking about their experiences and something they've gone through, don't write them off as some stupid old guy, or don't